Welcome to the Explainer. There's a question that might be holding your entire organization hostage, and it's probably the most common one your team asks. It sounds innocent enough. May I? But today, we're going to unpack how that one simple phrase is a silent killer of momentum, and how a tiny linguistic shift can unlock a whole new level of performance for you and your team.
Okay, so what you're seeing here are two completely different worlds, right? Two totally different ways to run a team. On one side, you've got the permission culture, where the leader is basically a gatekeeper, and the team just waits. But on the other side, you have an ownership culture. Here, the leader is a conduit, a channel, and the team acts. And here's the real kicker. You, as the leader, you're the architect. You get to choose which one of these you build.
It's funny, it seems kind of backwards, but a lot of really well-intentioned leaders, they accidentally become the single biggest roadblock in their own organization. In their effort to make sure everything's done right, every decision, no matter how small, has to flow through them. And the result? Well, it's total stagnation, frustration, and burnout for everyone, but especially for the leader.
This quote, wow, it just gets right to the heart of it, doesn't it? If your team is always waiting for you, if they're reactive, that's not a character flaw. It's a system flaw. It means your system is perfectly designed for dependency. But here's the good news. You designed the system, which means you can redesign it.
And look, this isn't just some vague feeling we're talking about. A permission culture has real, tangible costs. When your team is constantly stuck in a holding pattern, just waiting for that green light, what happens? Productivity tanks. Innovation, it just dies on the vine, because who's going to risk trying something new? And morale? Well, it hits rock bottom. Seriously, who wants a job where you can't make a single move without asking?
So, the big question is, how do we fix this? Well, it all starts with a huge shift in how you see yourself as a leader. You have to move from being a gatekeeper who controls everything to being a steward, a conduit who actually channels resources, energy, and authority to the team. You basically stop being the dam holding everything back and become the river that lets it all flow.
Let's look at this tale of two leaders. First, you've got Eric. He's a classic manager, right? All about control, rigid rules. Yeah, he hits his targets, but his team is just a revolving door of burnt-out people. Then you've got Emily. She's a steward leader. Her whole focus is on nurturing her team, on multiplying their potential. And her team doesn't just hit targets, they thrive, they innovate. They build this amazing culture where everyone feels like they truly own a piece of it.
So, what is a steward leader, really? Well, think of it this way. It's a leader who gets that their main job isn't to command and control, but to serve and empower. They've been entrusted with resources, people, money, a vision, and their whole mission is to multiply the value of those things for the good of everyone. It creates this ripple effect that goes way beyond just the bottom line. And this, right here, this is the very core of it. Being a conduit isn't just about passively getting out of the way. No way. It's an active, powerful choice. It's about building the systems, the trust, and the personal character needed to channel more power through you so you can empower your team to do things nobody thought was even possible. Okay, so let's get super practical now. This whole shift from gatekeeper to conduit, it's powered by something that's both simple and incredibly profound. The idea that changing your language literally changes your reality. And it all starts with one key phrase. Just think about the difference between these two. May I? That's a question. It seeks permission, and it immediately transfers responsibility up to the leader, putting you right back in that bottleneck. But I intend to. That's not a question. That's a declaration. It signals that ownership has been taken, and it creates forward momentum. And here's another fantastic example of this in action. When we say, I was too busy, we're basically playing the victim, right? We're a victim of our calendar. But when we own our choices and say, that was not a priority for me, we reclaim our power. It's a small shift, but it's totally liberating. It makes you the person who's actually in control.
As a leader, you can and you should coach this transformation. And it's actually a pretty straightforward four-step process. First, you've got to explain the why behind it. Then, you have to model it yourself. You have to start saying, I intend to. Then, and this is crucial, you have to create a safe space for your team to practice without being afraid they'll mess up. And finally, when you see them do it, call it out. Acknowledge it, reward it, reinforce the heck out of it. Now, of course, language is powerful, but let's be real. Empowerment without some kind of structure is just chaos. You can't just tell your team to take ownership and then disappear. You need a system. A system that lets you truly trust your team, but also lets you verify that everything is moving in the right direction. And this is the kind of structure that actually works. It's about giving each person a clear, personal operating system so they know what they're doing. It's about setting up a weekly rhythm so you can measure progress without having to micromanage. And it's about building in a way to strategically reset and make sure everyone is still aligned with the big picture vision. Just look at how a system like this can completely transform something as basic as the weekly meeting. Before, it's a boring, reactive status report. After, it's a proactive, high-energy session that's all about solving problems and moving forward. The outcome isn't a longer to-do list for you. It's a list of clear action items that are owned by the team.
So when you combine this powerful language with the right systems, well, the results are incredible. You finally get to move beyond being the bottleneck, and you start building something so much more powerful, a truly resilient organization. Let's look at the ultimate payoff here.
It all really comes down to this simple, if maybe a little dark, question. We call it the hit by a bus test. If you, the leader, were to suddenly disappear tomorrow, would your team just grind to a halt, or could they carry the mission forward without you? An ownership culture builds a team that doesn't just survive in your absence, it actually thrives. That's anti-fragile.
And hey, look what happens to your time as a leader. It gets liberated. You stop spending all day putting out fires and just approving tasks. You're suddenly free to focus on the high-value work that only you can do. Coaching your people, mentoring the next generation of leaders, and actually driving the big picture vision and strategy.
So let's just nail down the ultimate payoff. 1. You get a much more resilient organization. 2. You start cultivating proactive, committed leaders at every level, not just at the top. 3. You become a liberated leader, free to create real value. And 4. The end result is effective, empowered, and, wildly profitable teams that just win.
You know, in the end, this isn't just another business strategy. It's not a productivity hack. It's a leadership philosophy. It's a conscious choice that you make to break the chains of dependency, to stop being the bottleneck, and to free your team to step into their absolute full potential. You become the one who empowers them to walk forward with purpose.
Just remember that quote. Your team is already perfectly designed to get the results it's getting right now. The power to redesign it for ownership, for resilience, for freedom, that power is in your hands. So the final question I have for you is this. What is the one I intend to action you will take starting today to make that change? Thanks for tuning in to The Explainer. Now go forge forward.